Dad's silent revenge.
When I found my twin brother's real heart medication hidden in a coffee tin under the kitchen sink, I knew someone was trying to murder him. What I didn't know was that I'd have to become him to catch the killer. I'm Nathan Parker, 57 years old, retired Chicago PD detective. 25 years on the force before I took early retirement last year. People think I'm the screwed-up twin because I couldn't handle the job anymore. After you hear what they did to Bradley, you'll understand why sometimes a badge isn't enough to protect the people you love. The discovery happened 3 weeks ago during what should have been a routine visit. Bradley had called me that morning, his voice shaky and confused. "Nathan, I think I'm losing my mind. I keep finding my pills in different places. Yesterday they were in the bathroom cabinet. Today I found them under my bed." I drove over to his estate immediately. Bradley Parker, my identical twin, the guy who built a real estate empire worth $45 million, was sitting in his kitchen looking like a ghost. Dark circles under his eyes, hands trembling as he poured coffee. "Show me," I said. He led me to the master bathroom where his daily medication was supposed to be organized in one of those weekly pill containers. The container was there, filled with small white pills, but something felt wrong. 25 years as a cop teaches you to trust your instincts. "Bradley, what's your heart medication supposed to look like?" He pulled out the prescription bottle. Digoxin. Small white tablets with scoring marks and the number 125 stamped on them. I picked up one of the pills from his daily container. Smooth, blank, no scoring, no numbers. I touched it to my tongue, sweet, like sugar. "These aren't your heart pills," I said. Bradley stared at the pill in my hand. "That's impossible." Trevor picks up my prescriptions. He's been handling all my medical care since Nicole convinced me to let him help. Trevor Kane, my nephew-in-law married to our niece Nicole. The man Bradley had trusted with his business, his health, his life. I felt that old familiar cold settle in my chest, the same feeling I got when a case was about to crack wide open and reveal something ugly. "Where are your real pills, Bradley?" We spent the next hour searching that house like we were conducting a drug raid. I found them in the kitchen, hidden inside a coffee tin behind the flour and sugar. Real digoxin tablets, enough for about 2 months, just sitting there while Bradley had been taking sugar pills for who knows how long. Why would Trevor do this? Bradley asked, but I could see the pieces clicking together in his mind. The dizzy spells, the chest pains, the confusion that made him doubt his own sanity. I sat him down at the kitchen table. "Tell me everything that's been happening. Don't leave anything out." The story that came out over the next 2 hours made my blood boil. Trevor hadn't just been replacing medication. He'd been conducting a full-scale campaign of psychological warfare, moving things around the house while Bradley slept, whispering threats in the dark, isolating him from friends and employees. Classic abuser tactics, designed to make the victim question their own reality. "He wants me to sign over executive control of Parker Holdings," Bradley said. "Claims I'm developing dementia, that I can't handle the business decisions anymore. He's been pressuring Nicole to have me declared incompetent, and Nicole goes along with this." Bradley's face crumpled. "She doesn't know about the medication, but she sees how confused I've been getting. She thinks Trevor's just trying to help. She's been pushing me to sign the papers too." I walked to the window and looked out at the grounds of Bradley's estate. $45 million. That was Trevor's motive. Not love for Nicole, not concern for an aging relative. Cold, hard greed, dressed up as family loyalty. "Has he ever hurt you physically?" I asked. Bradley rolled up his sleeves, finger-shaped bruises on his forearms, a healing cut on his temple. He says I fall down a lot now. Says it's part of the dementia. I turned around and really looked at my brother. We were identical twins, born 12 minutes apart. Same height, same build, same graying hair. The only difference was I wore a thick mustache and had the hard eyes that come from hunting predators for a living. Bradley had the soft features of a man who'd spent his life building instead of tearing down. But strip away the mustache, and we were the same person. "I'm going to help you," I said. "But not the way you think." Bradley looked confused. "What do you mean?" I was already forming the plan in my head. 25 years as a detective had taught me that the best way to catch a criminal was to let them think they were winning right up until the moment you slap the handcuffs on them. "I'm going to become you," I said. "We're going to switch places." "Nathan, that's crazy. Trevor will know. Will he? When's the last time he really looked at you, Bradley?" I mean, really looked, not just saw what he expected to see, a sick old man he could push around. Bradley was quiet for a long moment. "What would you do?" What I've always done, gather evidence, build a case, and when I have enough to bury him, I'll hand it over to the DA's office and watch him go to prison for attempted murder and elder abuse. I could see the fear in Bradley's eyes, but underneath it was something else. Hope? For the first time in months, someone was offering him a way out that didn't involve giving up everything he'd worked for. How long would we need to switch? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Long enough for me to document everything he's doing, long enough to let him hang himself with his own rope. Bradley stood up and walked to the sink, staring out at his garden. He's dangerous, Nathan. If he figures out who you are, then he'll learn the difference between a sheep and a wolf. That afternoon, I drove Bradley to a small hotel near the airport and checked him in under my name. I gave him my credit cards, my ID, everything he'd need to stay invisible for a few weeks. Stay here, order room service, watch TV, rest. Let your body recover from whatever damage those fake pills have done. What about you? I looked in the bathroom mirror and started trimming my mustache. I'm going to go live your life for a while, and when I'm done, Trevor Kane is going to wish he'd never learned your name. The next morning, I put on Bradley's expensive suit and drove his Bentley back to the estate. I had his walk memorized, slightly hunched shoulders, careful steps, the hesitant way he moved through his own house like he was apologizing for taking up space. Trevor was waiting in the foyer when I walked in. "Where have you been, Bradley?" His voice had that edge of controlled anger that bullies use when they think no one's watching. I let my shoulders slump and made my voice shake. I went for a drive. I needed to think. Think about what? Signing those transfer papers? We've been over this, old man. You're not capable of running Parker Holdings anymore. Yesterday, you couldn't even remember where you put your pills. I flinched like Bradley would have. I know, Trevor. I'm just scared. Scared of what? Of finally admitting that you're too old and sick to make decisions. Your own assistant thinks you're losing it. The board members are starting to ask questions. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. I could smell his expensive cologne, see the predatory gleam in his eyes. This was a man who enjoyed having power over someone weaker. "Here's what's going to happen," Trevor said. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Carl Rodriguez and tell him to prepare the transfer documents. You're going to sign over executive control to me. And then you're going to announce to the board that you're stepping down due to health issues. And if I don't," Trevor's smile was cold as winter. "If you don't, then maybe your heart condition gets worse. Maybe you have an accident." Falls are so common in men your age, especially when they're confused and disoriented. The threat hung in the air between us. In that moment, I understood exactly what Bradley had been living with. This wasn't just financial abuse, it was a death sentence with a timeline. "I understand," I whispered, making my voice as broken as possible. Trevor patted my shoulder like I was a dog. "Good. I'm glad we had this talk. Why don't you go rest? You look tired." I shuffled toward the stairs, playing the part of the defeated old man. But inside, my mind was cataloging everything. The confident way Trevor issued threats, the casual mention of accidents, the complete lack of concern for someone he was supposed to love as family. Once I got to Bradley's room, I started my real work. First, I needed surveillance. I'd brought a small kit of equipment from my old detective days, wireless cameras no bigger than shirt buttons, audio recording devices that could stick to any surface, and a tablet to monitor everything remotely. I spent the next 2 hours wiring that house like it was a crime scene. Camera in the bedroom air vent. Audio device under Trevor's office desk. Recording equipment in the kitchen where most of the daily interactions happened. Every device connected to a secure cloud server that would store evidence even if the equipment was discovered. That evening at dinner, I got my first real look at the family dynamic. Trevor sat at the head of the table like he owned the place, which I suppose he thought he did. Nicole sat to his right, picking at her food and avoiding eye contact. I was served a bowl of lukewarm soup while they ate steak. "How are you feeling today, Uncle Bradley?" Nicole asked. Her voice was gentle, but I could hear the guilt underneath. She knew something was wrong, but was choosing to look the other way. Confused, I said honestly, "I keep forgetting things." Trevor laughed. Yesterday he asked me 3 times what day it was, and this morning I found him standing in the kitchen at 3 a.m., just staring at the refrigerator. That was news to me, but Nicole nodded like she'd heard similar stories. Trevor had been building a narrative of dementia for weeks, maybe months. Every forgetful moment exaggerated. Every sign of fatigue turned into evidence of mental decline. "Maybe we should call Dr. Morrison," Nicole said. "Have him increase Uncle Bradley's medication." "I already talked to him," Trevor said smoothly. He thinks Bradley needs more rest, less stress, which is why we need to finalize those business arrangements we discussed. I watched Trevor work. He was good at this, weaving truth with lies, using Nicole's genuine concern as a weapon against Bradley. She thought she was helping. She had no idea she was participating in a murder plot. After dinner, I retreated to Bradley's study to examine the financial records Trevor had been managing. What I found made my detective instincts scream. Shell companies that didn't exist, consulting fees paid to businesses with no employees, equipment purchases for properties that Parker Holdings didn't own. Trevor had been stealing for months, maybe years. Small amounts at first, $10,000 here, $25,000 there. But recently, the thefts had escalated. In the last 3 months alone, he diverted over $800,000 from company accounts. I photographed every document and uploaded them to a secure server. Then I accessed Trevor's computer using a password cracker I'd borrowed from the cybercrime unit. His browser history told the whole story. Online gambling sites, cryptocurrency trading, loan shark websites. The man had a serious addiction and had burned through Bradley's money trying to feed it. But the most damning evidence was in his deleted emails, messages from something called Atlantic Recovery Services, a loan shark operation that specialized in collecting debts from high-net-worth individuals. The final notice was dated 2 weeks ago, $2.1 million principal plus interest due immediately. Failure to pay will result in collection actions against all family assets. Trevor owed over $2 million to people who didn't accept bankruptcy as an excuse. They wanted their money, and they'd made it clear that Bradley's life insurance policy would be an acceptable form of payment. I copied everything and sent it to my old partner Kyle Martinez, who now worked white-collar crime for the Cook County DA's office. Need a favor, I texted him. Off the books until I give you the word. Check out Atlantic Recovery Services. I think they're connected to a case I'm working. Kyle texted back within an hour. Nathan, these guys are bad news. FBI has been trying to nail them for years. Whatever case you're working, be careful. I was being careful. But I was also getting angry. Bradley wasn't just Trevor's victim. He was collateral damage in a gambling addiction that had spiraled completely out of control. Trevor didn't see him as a person anymore, just as a solution to a financial problem. That night, I lay in Bradley's bed waiting. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway, soft, deliberate steps designed not to wake anyone. The door to the bedroom opened slowly. Trevor stepped inside, moving like a predator. He approached the bed where he thought Bradley was sleeping helplessly. In his hand was a syringe filled with something clear. I waited until he was close enough to touch me. Then I opened my eyes. "Hello, Trevor." He froze, the syringe still in his hand. In the moonlight filtering through the curtains, I could see his face go white with shock. "You're supposed to be asleep," Trevor whispered, his voice shaking. The syringe trembled in his hand. "I'm supposed to be a lot of things," I said, sitting up slowly. "Weak, confused, easy to kill. But here's the thing, Trevor, I'm not Bradley." I could see his mind trying to process what I just said. He looked at my face, searching for some sign that this was just another episode of dementia-induced confusion. "What are you talking about?" "You're having another episode, Bradley. Just lie back down and let me help you." "Help me with what?" "That syringe full of insulin, yeah, I know what that is. Enough to put an elderly man with heart problems into diabetic shock. Very clever. Looks like natural causes." Trevor's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, fear, and finally desperate calculation. "You don't know what you're saying. You're sick, Bradley." "Let me call Dr. Morrison." I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up. Not like an elderly man with balance problems. Like a cop who'd spent 25 years staying in shape for fights. "Sit down, Trevor." Something in my voice made him take a step back. I wasn't using Bradley's hesitant, apologetic tone anymore. This was my real voice, the one that had made gangbangers and drug dealers think twice about running. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm Nathan Parker, Bradley's twin brother, former Chicago PD detective, and you, Trevor Kane, are under arrest for attempted murder." The syringe slipped from his fingers and clattered on the hardwood floor. I pulled out my phone and showed him the recording app that had been running since he entered the room. "Smile for the camera. Everything you just did is being uploaded to a secure server. The syringe with your fingerprints, the insulin you stole from Nicole's diabetic testing kit, the fact that you just tried to murder someone you thought was helpless." Trevor stumbled backward until he hit the wall. "This is impossible." I saw Bradley, I talked to him. You saw what you expected to see. A broken old man you could push around. You never really looked at him, did you? Just saw a victim and dollar signs. I walked over and picked up the syringe, careful not to touch it with my bare hands. Insulin overdose. That was your plan. Make it look like Bradley made a mistake with Nicole's diabetes medication. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You've been planning this for weeks. Replace his heart medication with sugar pills to weaken him. Move his things around to make him think he was losing his mind. Then, when he was confused enough, a tragic accident with the wrong medication, very sophisticated for a gambling addict. The color drained from Trevor's face. How do you know about that? I'm a detective, Trevor. It's what I do. I know about Atlantic Recovery Services. I know about the $2.1 million you owe them. I know about the shell companies you've been using to steal from Parker Holdings. I know everything. Trevor slumped against the wall like a deflated balloon. They're going to kill me if I don't pay them. They said they'd take Nicole next. So you decided to kill Bradley instead? That was your solution. Murder your wife's uncle for insurance money? It wasn't supposed to be murder. It was supposed to look natural. Heart failure. The stress of running the company. He's old, people would understand. I shook my head. You've been watching too many movies, Trevor. Real murder investigations don't miss details like this. The fake medication, the financial irregularities, the convenient timing of a sudden heart attack, right when you needed $2 million. I pulled out a chair and sat down, keeping my eyes on him. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to transfer every penny you stole back to Parker Holdings. You're going to resign from the company, and you're going to confess everything to the DA's office. And if I don't, then Kyle Martinez from the Cook County DA's office gets a very interesting package of evidence. Videos of you abusing an elderly man, financial records showing embezzlement, and now attempted murder caught on camera. Your choice, cooperate now, or spend the next 20 years in federal prison. Trevor was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor. When he finally looked up, his face had changed. The arrogant corporate executive was gone, replaced by a desperate man who'd finally realized he was trapped. What about the loan sharks? That's your problem to solve. But I'll give you some free advice. Atlantic Recovery Services doesn't like dealing with federal investigations. Once the FBI starts looking into your gambling debts, they'll probably decide you're more trouble than you're worth. I stood up and walked toward the door. You've got until morning to decide, Trevor. Prison now with a chance at a plea deal, or prison later after a very public trial. Either way, you're done hurting Bradley. I left him sitting there in the dark, staring at the syringe on the floor. The next phase of my plan was about to begin. Trevor thought his only choice was between cooperating or running. He had no idea that both options led to the same place, justice. The next morning came with the sound of police sirens. I was sitting in Bradley's kitchen drinking real coffee when Kyle Martinez walked through the front door with 2 federal agents and a warrant. Trevor appeared at the top of the stairs in his bathrobe, looking like he hadn't slept. He saw the badges and his shoulders sagged in defeat. Trevor Kane, Kyle announced you're under arrest for attempted murder, elder abuse, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit fraud. As they read him his rights, Trevor looked at me with something like respect. You really are a cop. Retired, I corrected. But once you learn to hunt predators, you never really stop. Nicole came running down the stairs, her face pale with shock. What's happening? Why are you arresting my husband? Kyle handed her a copy of the warrant. Your husband has been systematically abusing your uncle and stealing from Parker Holdings. He attempted to murder Mr. Parker with an insulin overdose last night. Nicole stared at the document like it was written in a foreign language. That's impossible. Trevor would never. Uncle Bradley, tell them this is a mistake. I stood up and walked over to her. For the first time, she really looked at my face. I could see the moment she realized I wasn't Bradley. Who are you? I'm Nathan Parker. Bradley's twin brother. Your uncle is safe, Nicole. He's been staying at a hotel while I gathered evidence against Trevor. The truth hit her like a physical blow. She sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. I knew something was wrong. I kept telling myself Trevor was just trying to help, but I knew. You knew and you did nothing, I said. Not unkindly, but not letting her off the hook either. You chose comfort over your uncle's life. As the agents led Trevor away in handcuffs, he turned back one last time. The loan sharks, Nathan. They won't just disappear because I'm in prison. Already handled, I said. Turns out the FBI has been building a case against Atlantic Recovery Services for years. Your cooperation is going to help them close that investigation. Congratulations. You just became a federal witness. After they left, I called Bradley and told him it was safe to come home. He arrived an hour later, looking like he'd aged in reverse during his week away from Trevor's psychological torture. "Is it really over?" he asked. "Trevor will plead guilty to avoid a murder trial. He'll do 12 to 15 years federal time, probably in protective custody. Nicole will lose her trust fund. Accessory after the fact carries civil penalties even when the prosecutor doesn't press criminal charges." Bradley sat down heavily in his favorite chair. "What about the company?" "The $800,000 Trevor stole has been recovered. The shell companies are being dissolved. Your CFO position is open if you want to promote Rachel from assistant to executive. Rachel, she's the one who called me when she noticed irregular transactions. Turns out she has an MBA and 20 years of watching Trevor steal taught her exactly what proper financial oversight looks like." 6 months later, Bradley and I were sitting on his back porch watching the sunset over his garden. Parker Holdings was stronger than ever under Rachel's financial management. Bradley had his health back, his confidence back, and his company back. "I keep thinking about Nicole," Bradley said. "She calls sometimes, but I don't know what to say to her." "She made her choice," I said. "She chose security over family. Some bridges burn themselves. Do you think I'm being too hard on her?" I thought about it for a moment. "She's 32 years old, Bradley. Old enough to know the difference between right and wrong. She watched Trevor abuse you for months and said nothing because she was afraid of losing her lifestyle. That's not youthful mistake, that's character." Bradley was quiet for a while. "Thank you for saving my life. You would have done the same for me, would I?" "I'm not sure I have your courage." I laughed. "Bradley, you built a $45 million company from nothing. You employed 200 people. You created something lasting and valuable. That takes a different kind of courage than what I do. What's the difference? You build things up. I tear them down. The world needs both, but I've always envied what you do more than what I do." As the sun disappeared behind the trees, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Justice had been served, family had been protected, and the predator was in a cage where he belonged. My name is Nathan Parker. I'm 57 years old, and I learned that retirement doesn't mean you stop protecting the people you love. It just means you get more creative about how you do it. Trevor Kane thought he was hunting sheep. He forgot that some sheep have wolves for brothers. Sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one wearing a family name. They use love as a weapon and trust as a shield. But blood doesn't make you family, loyalty does. Experience isn't just about getting older. It's about knowing when to be patient and when to strike. A young man fights with his fists, but an old wolf fights with his brain.